And we're back today with David Jones, master drummer turned spiritual guru, helping us all find our true essence. Welcome, David.
Thank you, Sarah. Such a beautiful opportunity to be together again.
And if any of you missed part one, it'll be on this channel, Sarah Curro Interviews, and it will also be on YouTube on my channel, Sarah Curro. Look, we had too much to say last time, David. We had to
Yes,
do a part two because there were just too many questions that people need answering. And today, if it's okay with you, I wanted to discuss the notion of success and what it is.
right,
Yeah. So,
right. Gee, it's a big topic, isn't it?
yeah,
Success, because there's the outward worldly success, and we do need to be actually thriving in what we do to have things generating and activating so we can do more of that. And I do constantly feel that whatever I'm putting out as energy, in my work and in serving like this, like whatever community service I can do, it's always about the giving. And yes, some of it will be paid in terms of the energy of money. And we don't do it for this reason, but say with community service, I'll just go to that for a moment. There's a feeling that we're all moving forward together, that it's not just for me to get a buzz, helping people or whatever, but it's more than that. It's actually that we're all helping each other. I mean, even you and I just having this conversation now, we're supporting and loving each other and really helping to go to another level, and stay in those levels rather than coming down. Because even one conversation can take us down in terms of our energy, in terms of our perception of life. And we do need to be aware of those things. So that's another form of success of creating healthy boundaries.
that's right. And the search for money and power and all of those things, that they tend to derail our search for meaning. So when we're told straight A's are the most important thing for us, when we're told to, trick someone into buying something that's not worth that much money, there's all these little things that we can do, which aren't necessarily illegal, but they feed our, oh, I need money. I've got to trick
Yeah.
people to get. So it's a question of how do we find our true selves without hurting others.
Mm, mm.
Success for me used to be uh, controlling people. I'll admit that here publicly. I used to make people stay out so late in Hong Kong that they would miss their ferries back home, and I thought it was, for everyone's benefit. Everyone can have a great time and all of that, but it was just about controlling other people, actually, and it wasn't
Mm, mm.
adding to anyone's. I mean, it was fun. I'll admit it. It was fun, but what was it doing? I mean, it was just kind of. It was all about controlling other people, and as I get older, I realize that if you're getting your power through force, it's completely meaningless, because it means that you're just
Yeah.
forcing other people to do something you want, and they're not going along for your ride with you. They're just doing it to shut you up or to
Mm,
stop you.
mm.
So, yeah, so success in terms of power, it's a really hard thing to break away from. If you're good at manipulating people, um, it's hard to let go of that particular power. So, what do we replace that with when we do let go of that?
Sure. It's a really, really important thing to be discussing, actually, Sarah, because we all, in different ways, want to control situations and other people. And of course, it's impossible. It's number one, and not such a positive thing to do, because it weakens my state as well. Even though we feel we've got our way temporarily, it's actually a weakening of the self. Because ultimately, what we want is self mastery. And that's a long road. And it's not, as we talked about in the first session, it's not an end goal. It's really looking after myself and looking after how I think, looking after my mind, and my physical form, health wise, diet, sleep, rest, and perspective. The perspective that I hold on life, if it's about, with great respect to what you've very honestly talked about, if the perspective is to get my way, then it's going to fall over at some point. It's going to really have negative consequences. And so even on a subtle level, we all do that. But once we start to become aware of the games and the manipulations and the modifying or trying to modify other people's behavior, we start to realize that, the most loving and caring and kind thing I can do is change my own attitudes, modify my, control's too strong a word. It's like you say, not through force, but through gentleness and love for myself and respect for myself. If I start to now watch those things, watch those programs, the habits that I've formed over a long period of time, and think, is this serving me? It's certainly not serving this other person. In reflection, we can see that and feel that if we're really honest with ourselves. Then what about myself? Then I start to talk to myself in a really positive and kind way, but very constructively, like a coach. So I become my own coach. And then this is great for music too, is, to really firstly see what's happening that's really, really good. So a coach, they wouldn't say, oh, that's terrible, you did this, you didn't say that, you didn't do this. The coach wouldn't do that. A really good coach would amplify and reinforce what's good. So that's great. That's happening. This is progressing. Now let's work on this bit. So still be put in a positive rather than this is weak, you are not doing the right thing. So you can hear it even as I speak, even though I'm not speaking aggressively, even those words have power. It really, okay. So if I was to use the most positive language in here, then I'm starting to really be kind and respect myself and become a coach, my own coach. So the art of self-encouragement is such a deep thing. Yeah.
Absolutely. This coach analogy, let's go with that for a while. That is fantastic. Yeah. This reminds me of my own violin teaching, actually. I come across, especially in Australia, there's probably some international listeners, but in Australia, we've got a bit of a low self-esteem for many reasons, which these many reasons have to do with our own history of colonization and all of that. We don't need to talk about that in this episode. But we have low self-esteem, which means those stories we tell ourselves about playing the violin or playing our instrument or that we're not perfect, they play into the way we perform, the way we get performance anxiety. And so I've found the best thing to do with my students, which reminds me of what you're saying, is giving them enough phrases that they can replace this down talk. I've got my list on the wall. I'll just read a couple of them.
Yes, please. Yeah.
Jiggle, jiggle, shake it. Wonder Woman. That's to stand like with this awesome posture.
Yeah.
Angel wings, relax back. What's another one? Elbow, scoop, connect everything. Shimmy. Shimmy is my favorite one because shimmy means just shake it out. Why are you so tense?
Yeah.
Shimmy.
Yeah.
If you shimmy one bit of you, the rest of you will shimmy.
Yeah, that's right.
So the point is, they are standing there practicing being hard on themselves. I come along and go, say this, say this, say this to yourself, say that to yourself, replace all that down talk. So, maybe that down talk is still there in the background, but it's getting softer and softer and softer. And it's becoming less and less relevant or helpful or less and less of a habit. So this firm but fair coach steps in and says, okay, that happened. This can be better. Do it this way and practice that. I know you don't like the word practice, but we are talking about music now,
Sure,
David.
sure,
practice a little bit. So the coach, as if we were to follow this line of thinking, the coach helps you reinvent the story that you've been telling. And those stories the stories can be really damaging or they can be really uplifting and invigorating. And that's what I want you to talk about, is how important it is for us to reclaim our original story.
Oh, what you've just said is so powerful. Reclaim my original story. Can I use that?
Please, please. I'm using all your material. I use your material regularly. Please,
This
happy
is
to
so
pay you
lovely.
back.
The original story of the soul really is about the path of spirituality in action. It's spirituality is not going to a cave somewhere and leaving life. You know, it's
Mm,
not okay renouncing everything and it's the baby in the bathwater sort of analogy.
mm.
It's not always a great analogy, but we
It's
do
a
need
bit.
to. I know,
I know
I know,
that's a bit violent for you, David. I think.
I know. I know. It's a strange one that keeps popping up everywhere, but it just means that we do need to retain and really develop a beautiful humanity in the practical world with our relationships. Number one, the relationship with myself, with everyone in my connection, and even strangers. Sometimes I've got into a cab and I've had the conscious thought, gee, this might be the only time I ever have any connection with this particular soul, this person. And even if they're talking too much, sometimes cabbies love a bit of a chat. I might just sit back in a little bit more meditative and really listen and think, I can probably learn something here if I really, really pay attention and give regard. And as it's said, to give regard is to receive regard, because in our relationships, as we've talked before about, this is the greatest feedback of our progress, if you like. As with music too, I mean, you're in an ensemble, the feedback that happens and the interactions between all of the ensemble members and orchestra, or even if it's a duo or solo with the audience or with the listeners, that all of those interactions it's giving me feedback of how I'm progressing and how I'm moving to a higher state. What I mean by higher state is that it actually feels better. There's more energy, there's more clarity, I'm more relaxed, more flow. So there are a few topics there. I'd love to take up again the thing of the coach, is that the coach, the feeling of how I talk to myself being like a coach, the coach is always encouraging, but at times firm, just very clear. So there's a very big difference between aggression and being assertive. And that, it always starts with the self, doesn't it? Whatever we're looking at in terms of life, issues and things that we need to improve on, it always starts with the self first. So the way I see myself, the way I talk to myself is not just this physical form. It's the original story of the soul that I've been on a long journey, whatever our spiritual beliefs, even if we just take this lifetime. I've been on a long journey and I've accumulated many different experiences. And I can now write a new story. And we're doing that anyway, aren't we? In every moment, we're actually creating our own story. It's fascinating. If we chose, as we talked about last time, we can even change gender. We could change country. We could actually go and adopt another country's traditions, religion, environment, the whole vibration of that. We could even adopt a whole new set of friends. It's really entirely up to us. Have a new profession. Pretty courageous, but it is possible. So at least in my current situation, am I going to keep, this is the question, I'd love for you to respond as well, if that's okay, Sarah, with me telling my story over and over and over, am I doing myself service?
Right, and that's tied in with the idea of success as well, because if the story you tell degrades you or leads you back down to negative thoughts or addiction or
That's right.
bad eating or any of those things, um, I've struggled with a lot of that. Uh, a lot of the addictions I've had have been inherited, smoking.
Mm-hmm.
But what has helped me most in this journey is you, and I want everyone to know the things that you've helped me with from a practical level. Before one of my solo shows that you came to, you were an audience member, and before my shows, I'm a little bit like a diva. I don't want to see anyone. I don't want to talk to anyone. I'm, fixing everything. But I always want to see you. And it's because this one time you came backstage to wish me luck. But you didn't say break a leg. You took my hands and you said, congratulations in advance for the success of this concert. It's like, this is a revelation. It's like, I have already done well. And the power of those words was so profound that I do that now with anyone I'm wishing well for their concert. Congratulations in advance. And that, I have to thank you in front of all of these people for that. That is so powerful. The second thing is the story I tell myself is that I don't improvise. And now David Jones here has helped me retell that story to sound like this. I can improvise. But I'm only halfway there, David, because I only feel comfortable improvising with you, because once again, you have sort of laid this foundation for me to feel totally comfortable with whatever comes out. And I'm a classical musician, as most of you know, and in the classical world, we don't get opportunities to improvise, and we don't practice it, and we don't pride ourselves on it. We pride ourselves on reading music and churning through repertoire very quickly, very high level repertoire.
Very high level, yeah.
But there is absolutely no wiggle room for any kind of
wiggle.
creativity.
It goes back to your
Wiggle,
saying.
wiggle. No wiggling, no wiggling.
Yeah.
So the amazing thing about the coach-like behavior you have with me, the gentle coach, the firm but fair coach, is you're telling me something that doesn't fit into my story, actually. You're telling me something that I never knew was possible about myself. And once again, I'd like to thank you for that, but also I'd like people to think about how you can do that to yourself, being your own coach. What story do you want to tell? How do you want to change? What do you want to become? What is there in your life that you haven't tried yet that your down talk is stopping you? Your negative talk and anxieties and fears and regrets and all that, they're the things that's stopping you from trying that way of being. So the coach analogy, David, is so fantastic. And I want everyone to understand that words and thoughts are powerful. They just are. And so the success that we're talking about today, personally, I feel that, you can earn money. You can earn a lot of money in this world. You can do a whole bunch of stuff that, in fact, you used to do. Would you mind talking about what you used to do for money, and now you don't do that stuff anymore, and why? I'm sorry if that's a little personal, but I'd like
I'd love to share that, Sarah. Firstly, I'll come back to that, but I'd love to address this whole thing. Thank you for your honouring of our lovely spiritual journey together, because I don't feel I'm a guru so much as a brother. I'm your brother, and we all love and support each other in life in general, and in the arts particularly. We need that, don't we? We really need not just feedback and acknowledgement and respect on things coming to us, but we really need to feel that there's love and support on a really deep, authentic basis. And that music and the arts really, again, I think everything in life really, the foundation is spirituality. Without that foundation, things just fall apart. And I can see that now, because I used to drink really, really heavily. Again, like you're saying about the inherited behaviors, from my family, then that was just the way that from a very young age that I thought I could sustain, a good, happy state. And so the long stories there, but, when I realized through experience of meditation and spirituality, whatever that means for your viewers and listeners, whatever your spirituality is, make it strong. Make it the absolute foundation of everything you do and you think and you say, that it comes from a deeper place of significance and meaning and love, spiritual love. And so, the journey for me with alcohol was that, to begin playing, it was 2 brandy and cokes before I'd even start, just to get into a relaxed state. And so we'd go on from there. So, yeah, it was a revelation to me that it's all about my mind. It's about my thinking. And so then realizing that the company that I keep is really important, because I can be brought down very quickly. And there are certain situations where we can't choose the company. So we choose mentally how we very gently but powerfully set up healthy boundaries, and also don't allow everything from outside in. And so, one thought I was having as you were sharing with us very deep things is that awareness is the beginning of the path. We're all on the path of life anyway. And we're all hopefully learning things and growing from our experiences and healing. But if we don't have the attitude of healing, then possibly this is the time, right now, to start. Why not now? Why not now? So everyone will have their own time. So we can't force that on anyone else. It's only deeply within myself that I realize, yes, it's now I change my story. And we need to experience something through that, and whether you call it a spiritual experience, sometimes peak experience, sometimes the lowest experience, there's only up. That's the point at which we begin our spiritual journey. And however it happens, so then it's about the strategies that we put in place to deal with life and with the challenges that invariably come up. But this, coming back to something you said, it's really the process of self-reflection that is paramount to everything in life. Even my perception of success is about self-reflection. Well, what is most important to me? And if I can ask you again the question, because I might have done quite a bit of a trail there, the question again, if you don't mind asking me.
Oh no, I was trying to ask you a leading question, which is a little bit manipulative and control freakish of me, but I did
not at all.
I did want you to talk about the kinds of big deal, big paying,
yes,
gigs that you used to get a lot. You were famous. You still are famous, but you played with some incredible people, big tours, big casino gigs, big corporate gigs, and they would have paid very well. And I just wanted you to talk about the transition from doing gigs like that to not doing gigs like that. That's what I wanted you to talk about.
Yes, great. Thanks, Sarah. Well, if I just track it again, this is about story, isn't it? And it's interesting when you talk about a story, your own story or someone else's story. I used to say to people, well, do you want the magazine version, the drum magazine version, all the things that I've achieved and all these, glowing reports of whatever, or do you want the real version? Now, the real version is actually one of frustration and of disappointment. Now, why I'm using those negative words is that's just the truth. They're not negative in themselves. It's just describing the experience. But I don't feel anything about it now, or very little, so very little feeling of, that was a frustrating time, or felt like I was beating my head against a wall kind of thing. So when I was playing with very, big name groups and with artists like John Farnham, early days, in his first rock band, and, very much had great opportunities, and I continue to have playing with wonderful artists from overseas and here in Australia, top level. And being in some of those bands with James Morrison for 3 years, I was with John Farnham for nearly 2 years. And we played the Stevie Wonder support. There were huge gigs. Then I even joined Dragon, the rock band, and fantastic music. It's just great rock and roll songs. The songs are just fantastic. What started to happen for me was I was realizing I was everyone else's drummer. And I would always have what I call projects of the heart, even from mid-teens onwards. I was always playing every different style of music and always had in my mind to be very versatile and be able to cover anything. So like you're talking about with reading, be very accurate with my reading, but also be very interpretive, be able to give people exactly what they wanted, and also be able to improvise how I play. So there was always this balance, but it did tip to one side for quite some time there, where I was everyone's drummer. And I can honestly say I was losing the sense of identity and sense of self. And I will come back to this. There was a big change in 1984, interesting year, where I was introduced to a meditation path through a friend, another musician. And that was what I needed, that it was a friendly introduction. You know, I had too much arrogance at that time to seek something out myself. You know, I thought I had the answers, but I was quite empty inside, to be honest. And so the path then was, okay, yes, wonderful to play with all these great people, yet this internal personal path, I really need to not just explore it, but I need to share it through what I do. So the music itself is not everything. And I don't want to sound, again, negative about that. It's actually true. It's a vehicle. It's a very powerful vehicle. It's an instrument, literally an instrument or a channel through which our consciousness can travel through our limbs and through our body, through the instruments that we're playing. And it's all resonance, isn't it? It's about vibration. It's about connection. It's about the energy, the vibration. And we say, you know, the vibe is good. What's the vibe? It's the thought energy, it's the intention, it's the love, it's the feeling of heart and soul in everything we do. And so improvisation for me has always been the pinnacle of that.
Oh,
it's
yeah.
You know, it's the spirituality meeting the practical.
And the two, if it's just you and me on that stage, it's our inner selves connecting and communicating.
That's right. Soul to soul.
Yeah, without the top stuff, you know, just that direct connection through music. And that's what I want everyone to hear, that fusion that you made between your path and music. Music's not just a way to get money for you. It's something much deeper. It's not something you put down at 5 p.m. and then watch 3 hours of Netflix. I mean, you might watch 3 hours of Netflix. I'm not sure. I believe I've recommended a few Netflix shows to you recently.
Sure.
David Jones is not above Netflix, people.
No, definitely not. There's some some great things out there. Yeah. But you know, can I address that? Because that's a beautiful thing to bring up. Then it's about selection and being discerning, isn't it? What am I allowing into my mind and my vision and in my whole being, into my consciousness? So Carmen, my partner and I, when we watch something, we'll be very discerning, and then we'll even talk ourselves through something that's a little unsettling that's shown, say, or you know, or if there's a very full-on scene, we'll say, "Oh, poor actors."
I do that
having to go through that. So we keep, you know, it's not a full-on meditation as we're watching the thing. Of course not. Yeah, we're enjoying everything. You know, we're human beings. So, but the thing is, there's a filter still there, present.
Absolutely.
And the filter is important.
This is also what I mean when I keep trying to pull you back to this topic of choosing to do this gig or that gig, or choosing not to do this gig. It can relate to everything. I've found with Netflix, my husband Paul and I got into British crime series, and they're so well done, they're so well acted, but they're so violent, they're so brutal. It's just I found after a while I just couldn't do it anymore. It was the final puzzle piece of who I want to be right now. I'm doing my yoga, and I quit everything, and I'm feeling really great, and I'm doing the 5-2 diet, and just things are falling into place. I'm being nicer to my son, regardless of what he's doing. So all these little puzzle pieces are fitting into place. And yet, every night, watching some British crime shows, which are fantastically made, it was dragging me downwards still. It was adding trauma, which was not my own. And this is an interesting thing that human beings
Oh,
do. They
sure is.
absorb the stories of others, which um, I so relate to, because I'm a sympathetic person. I have empathy for others, and that leads me to my other path, which is the righteous path of doing something about these injustices. So the more of these negative stories I absorb and take on, the more of this inherited trauma I'm experiencing on behalf of others. And I get to the point where I realize I can't help that other person. I haven't alleviated their burden. I've doubled it. By absorbing it, I've doubled it. And I want people to really understand that the way you can help other people is trying to find that inner peace that's so difficult for a lot of us to find. Try and find that inner peace. And as you're listening to someone's trauma and someone's horrible story, try and give back the peace that you found, because otherwise, as I said, you're just doubling their stress and anxiety.
Absolutely, yeah, because
So
then we both go down, don't we?
yeah, yeah, exactly. And
And
so
the
that's
thing is, there are two words here: choice and the observer state. And rather than that being a theory, the observer state is real. And we all know, if we've accidentally knocked a vase with water in it, and flowers have gone over, and you're almost watching it in slow motion before it all smashes onto the floor, you think, oh, gee, that was interesting. If you're in, and sometimes it's not so calm. You're like, oh my goodness, But in that moment, it's like time stops. Now, I'm bringing up these not so pleasant experiences because we have all experienced that, or a car accident, even a minor one where we've hit something or whatever's going on. Everything slows down. Time is not measured by the clock then. It's by our consciousness. And the same when we're having a really great time, you look over and think, oh my goodness, that's been 3 hours. I'm late for the next thing, because, the time has either stretched or compressed. And that compression or stretch is to do with our consciousness and how we're feeling and what we're experiencing. And this is very interesting in terms of artistic practice too, which I'll bring into later. But the observer state is aware of the two things. And the way I like to describe it, because I experience this very, very consistently now through a lot of practice and development over many years, is that the observer state is that you're actively involved, passionately engaged, and yet watching. There's an aspect of you watching. And that, the watcher, if you like, is you. It's the real, absolute essence of yourself. You could say the eternal self, the true self, the soul. However you want to define it. And as we were talking about, words are important because they're portals. They open up the experiences. It's not just to repeat a word like a mantra is beautiful and powerful, but if there's no meaning to it, we might get an energy or vibration. But if we go into the meaning of Om, say, for instance, there's an ancient word, Om. So Om means I am the soul. Shanti, these are from Hindi language, but very ancient. So Shanti means full of peace. Om Shanti. I mean, even the sound of it's like music. Om Shanti. It's a greeting of peace. In India, I mean, everyone says Om Shanti. Like we say, how are you? Well, you don't really want to know. It might take 3 hours. So the same with Om Shanti. If you really take on Om Shanti as a meditation, I am a peaceful soul, then that could be half an hour just spent in that, exploring that. Each of those words, I, who am I? Am, I exist. I exist. I'm a continuum of consciousness, even beyond my body. There's a start to this body, there'll be an end to the body. The consciousness is coming before. So it's a whole other rave, but just in essence, I've come into this physical form to play this role, and I will leave at some point. It's inevitable. But my consciousness, the essence of who I am and what I am, will remain. As energy, as consciousness, as however we want to, through words, describe that. So the observer state is I, the soul, watching the whole play.
That's right.
And We need to get in touch with that. That
Yeah.
saves us from so much negative emotion and getting pulled down into the play and stuck.
I have noticed that a lot of my good friends who suffer from anxiety, mental illness, they are very artistic and they are very connected. They're very sensitive. And I
Yes.
often say to them, I often say to these people when I'm trying to help them, I say, make sure that your anxiety is yours and not just what you've pulled in from other people, because that
Oh,
can
that's
add, yeah, that can add to your burden. Deal with your own problems. Um, as best you can. I've never had a clinically diagnosed mental illness, so I'm certainly not taking away that these problems are absolutely serious and they need proper treatment. But
definitely.
at the same time, if you just ask yourself, am I feeling this because my mother felt it? I I notice that a lot with the way I talk about my father and my mother. I am this way because dad was like this. Now that no longer needs to be my story. My dad passed away and he was epic and he was awesome and he was righteous and he was fair and he was a doer and he was all the things that I identified with. And I found myself getting more and more and more angry, and he towards the end of his life got more and more and more and more angry, and it was so devastating to see, because as the body deteriorates, and the mind deteriorates, those habits are harder and harder and harder to break. So I look at my dad and I'm really grateful for what he was like, but at the same time I can observe how being that way, constantly attached to your own stories, can take you downwards and make your
Sure.
quality
Sure.
of life not so great. So
That's
as
right.
I honor my beautiful father, what a total legend, I also look at it and I think, well, do I want to be telling that same negative story as
Sure.
I age? So, yes, and that simply goes to the point of, what are my problems and what are other people's problems? You can start by just making that distinction between, okay, what are mine so I can sort them out, and
That's right.
what
That's
are
right.
everybody else's that I'm, taking on to try and help them. So, yeah, we need to be clear, firm but fair coach. We need to be a firm but fair coach for ourselves and for others.
That's great, Sarah. And the coach is the observer, watching the behavior, the performance, if you like, the performance in the play. See the actor, see myself as the actor. I'm playing this part. Now, do I need to play the same way? You can rehearse in your mind a new scene. So when I'm faced with that same, trigger point, whatever it is, that person says that thing a lot, am
Mm.
I going to respond in the same way? I do have
Yes.
choice. So I do have choice.
Yes, that's
But we
what you were
don't think
talking
we
about.
have.
Yeah,
We
you were
don't think
talking.
we have.
Yep. The choice, you said choice, and that is key. You said choice.
Yep.
And the only person you can control and pull the reins on is you. And that's a big lesson. And for me at the moment,
It is.
My son Oscar has been really proud of me lately.
Oh, that's beautiful.
He's noticed. He's noticed the way I have changed a little bit. And now, as you said in part one, it's a constant, not battle, but it's a work in
Refinement.
we're a work in progress. Let's
We
not let
are. We are. We
let's
refine the approach, we
let
refine it, and we form little strategies. And that's not being manipulative. That's just being really attentive to my progress and to that I can improve in these given situations. And they will keep coming up until I do something about it. If I get a new perspective, then everything can change.
That's right. And if you are erring on that spiritual side, the karma, the universe is providing me, opportunities to reshape my personality or whatever. Or if you're just a complete cynic and you're sick of the way you are, just use our little words of wisdom here to practice replacing the talk that doesn't do us any good, that doesn't
That's
serve
right.
us.
That's
Just
right. Yeah.
give it a go. You don't need to be meditating every day to start
No.
this process. You can just think of these concepts as intellectual concepts if you want, but they do help. Just start changing your story and you'll find that it transforms you. Speaking of transformation, let's look at all of these
Oh,
unbelievable things that David has done.
thank you, Sarah. You're
All of
very
these
honest.
beautiful albums. You can find anything at all about David Jones on his website, www.davidjonesdrums.com.au. And not only
No
that,
AU. Doesn't need the AU, but yeah.
sorry,
Yeah, yeah. No.
just .com, more
Thank you,
international.
Sarah. Yeah.
And David's partner, Carmen. David, look, can I just say to everybody, David has influenced me probably more than anyone in my life, and I thank you for that, David. David helps me when I'm with David, when I'm talking to David, I'm affected by the way David is, and I'm grateful for that. Carmen is an interesting person. I don't see Carmen as much as I see David, but the things that Carmen has produced, like this, Today I Am, and there's another one called Today I Will. I have been so down over the last few years, as we all have, especially this year, but over the last few years, but since meeting David and Carmen, these books are incredible. You can just open them up to any page and they will help you. They will haul you out of whatever hole you found yourself in mentally. And I'm going to prove it. I'm going to open this book randomly.
Great.
I did this in part 1 and it was actually the
Spot
exact
on.
topic.
Yeah.
It was the exact topic that David and I were talking about. So here we are. Today I am a guest. Now, on my blurb for Sarah Curro Interviews, it says these interviews go both ways. So today I am a guest. Be the guest. Oh, sorry. Hang on. Sorry. Today I am a guest. Being the guest, I am carefree. This is not my residence, and everything I use is a gift from my host. I'm grateful for all that I receive. I appreciate even the smallest gestures of kindness, the simplest offerings. Nothing is taken for granted. Gratitude comes easily for a guest who is bestowed with many blessings while simply passing through life. Oh!
That's beautiful.
Carmen Warrington, everybody. Carmen Warrington. Today I am, or today I will. Just Google it. Isn't Google great? Just Google David
Yeah.
Jones drums, enter, and then you'll have access to all of these absolutely amazing CDs.
Yes, Carmen is an extraordinary being. You could say I'm biased, but no, if I really look objectively, she's an extraordinary being. And perhaps she might be into coming on the podcast.
David, it's
I
Remembrance.
can ask for you.
David, it's Remembrance Day right now. It's 11 a.m. Could we have a moment's silence, please?
Yes, and I'll put a little visual up for our meditation too. Okay, here we go. Thank you. As we hear the chimes of the clock striking 11 on the 11th of the 11th, let's remember what is most valuable to every human soul. Peace, deep kindness, generosity, gratitude. And as we breathe more deeply into this moment, feel that life prevails. The goodness of human beings is always there underneath the surface, no matter what is being portrayed. The human soul is beautiful, peaceful, powerful. Let's reflect on that for a minute. breathing more deeply is the understanding and realization that the original state of every human soul is peace. I am the peaceful soul, and I radiate peace to all my brothers and sisters everywhere. In the quiet and in the stillness. I am the peaceful soul.
Thank you, David. Thank you so much for being
Thank you,
with
Sarah.
us.
Thank you. This beautiful opportunity to be together and talk about such special things, really important, profound things.
Absolutely. And believe me, there will be a part 3, 4, 5. I could talk to you forever. So thank
That'll
you.
be lovely. I look forward to that.
Okay, darling. Bye.
Thanks, Sarah. Bye.